Hello there, everybody. This is Tigitar here, and welcome back to another episode of the Tigaria construction. We've just finished up the downfall creation in the last episode, and that benchmark basically indicated the completion of what I called Tigaria 1.2. So I kind of broke that in build progression, and then made an update on the workshop at that time, and updated the welcome messages and the info and all that. So then after that point, I returned to the core structure of the base. Now that it has the functionality there in terms of storage and crafting areas, we actually get working on the display areas. And so at this point, I also took a good amount of time and I started making a list of basically everything I wanted to have included in Tigaria as far as displays go. And so I just pulled up my notes, which this document is shared in the Tigaria folder on Google Drive that is accessible if anyone's interested. But the list that I came up with, I'll just go over it now, and it's kind of interesting to try to get an idea of what I had at the time thought to start laying out. And overall, it pretty much covered everything. I did have to fill in stuff later down the road, but to start with, I jotted down that I wanted to do critters. I wanted to include the gold critters in that, so I had some subcategories. Plants, including dye plants, herbs, trees, then the dyes, the biomes, and I list out all the different biomes that I wanted included. Basically including everything which you can now see in the completed form, but certain mini biomes, such as, say, like the beehive in the jungle, I just built that into the jungle biome. Same with the lizard temple, I just included it within the underground jungle. Thinking about it now, there are only a few minor things that, technically, almost every biome block is included there, except for maybe stuff like the meteor, the landed meteor, because that's a mini biome in itself, but there is no meteor included in the biomes display, which is honestly something I hadn't thought of until just now, but there's one thing that's not there. Anyway, moving on from there, we have the furniture, which I could separate into the crafting furniture and the functional furniture. And then within that, I would have music boxes as a big section, and mechanisms as a big section in itself as well. I'm going to take a quick break from the list, though, to talk about what we're actually seeing being built here. My first thing in mind was the painting display. It's a straightforward item set to display. It's well defined and somewhat easy to organize. And so that was my idea to get started with here. So the first thing I was doing is figuring out how to structure something in order to support the display buildings themselves. And so that's what I was trialing and erroring here, just kind of designing what I wanted some sort of little floating island to look like, as it would be able to hold, say, a little building or a house that then displays the paintings within. So this was my prototyping of the platform design, which I ended up using quite prevalently throughout the rest of the build. I use it here for all of the different painting museums, and then I use it in a lot of different parts of the build as well in the future. Anyway, while I'm finishing up the little floating islands, my vision included statues, also I guess still part of furniture, but its own section. Banners, that's its own section of furniture. And then decorational furniture, I guess, which that more narrowly includes bars and paintings, and quite a few other things that I don't have listed there. But the paintings, as one enclosed section itself, I was the first thing I got started on. Then it goes to some other, a little bit broader of a section as tools, which includes a lot of different things, and then the weapons, which would include. Oh wait, no, I'm not to weapons yet. But within tools, we have wands, like the placement wands. I looked at that and thought weapons at first, but no, tools and wands for like the block placement. Then equipment, including pets, a subcategory into light pets, then mounts, then hooks, and mine carts, and then finally onto weapons, which separated into the 4 main categories of damage type. Melee, but within melee we have swords, yo-yos, spears, boomerangs, flails, and I have a few interesting sort of exceptions here and there that I clarified and adjusted the organization for, but that's actually, I'll go over that in more detail on the next section, I believe, which I think is actually where we do both the block display as well as the tool and weapon display. Anyway, melee weapons, ranged weapons, including bows, guns, launchers, consumables, like the thrown items, and then a fair amount of miscellaneous stuff, and then ammo in itself kind of as a category. Magic weapons, which I guess I could now, thinking about it, sort into like magical guns, magical spells, magical tomes or books, or other miscellaneous magic weapons, but I didn't bother separating all of those out. To me, I've never thought about magic weapons categorically in my mind as being separated into like their own subcategories. They're all kind of magic weapons, and each one is unique in its own way. I suppose I would lump like magic missile, flame lash, and the rainbow rod all together, being as they act the same way and function the same way. But as far as magic weapons as a whole category, I find they're all just kind of unique for the most part, and didn't realize that, or even still don't agree that I would necessarily want to break them up into a bunch of different sections. Back to the painting display real quick. We are now starting on the first structure for painting displays. So I built each of the islands first, and my goal was to theme each one loosely for the section of painting that they would display. So for the dungeon, just a standard forest with a dungeon themed museum basically. And then next to it, to the left, you can see it's the underground theme. So it's stone and ores making up the surface of the island. And so that's where I planned on doing the underground themed paintings. And then I start, roughly getting an idea of the size and scale that I'm going to need to do. Obviously, the dungeon paintings are one of the larger categories as far as count or quantity, but also size of individual paintings. Like, just look at how many 4x6 paintings there are. There are a lot. So a lot of the time was spent just figuring out, one, the size, the amount of space that I would need minimum, and then how to organize the paintings within that space is a sort of second problem to solve. I realized that my first attempt did not have enough space, so I went with a slightly different design, scooched the walls out a bit, made some adjustments to try to give myself some more wiggle room, and then basically repeat. Back to my overall list. After the weapon types, then there just the final things I had were vanity items, armor, or grouped kind of together like armor and vanity items as clothing displays. Then trophies and relics, which definitely go within furniture, but I felt like I wanted to do them their own section just because they have an important representation as far as game progression and play importance in Terraria itself. So that was my original list, and I quickly, shortly after that, realized there were still a bunch of things that I forgot to list, and so I listed them in addition, which includes consumables, which is a big category. You could then separate that into food, potions, permanent consumables. Then I also forgot about kites. The blocks in itself, or blocks themselves, I didn't list up above. Paint, as in like the paint from the painter. Basically, I wanted to include every item by the end of it, I realized. Then the fishing area, instruments, which I lumped into music boxes, just fit them in there because there aren't actually that many instruments in the game. And most of them have other overlaps, such as like the axe being in the tool and also weapon categories. Then I had an NPC/housing display, which is another big section that I had left out. Again, that one's another one that I'll spend a lot more time in during the actual observation of. Golf, as far as like just everything related to golf in a display, and then finally miscellaneous items, and basically every other item that didn't fit into any of those categories I wanted to just throw out there and have available for viewing. The only other thing besides that I wanted to include was the minigame completion monument. Just its own little standalone build somewhere easy to observe and easy to get to, where as one played through the mini games in the world and earned the tokens for completing them, they would be able to place them in a monument to indicate the progression and completion and just display them in a fun way. So that's kind of where I started gaining my overall a better idea of the overall vision and features and build sections that I was going to try to incorporate by the time I reached a quote final product. And then basically started going attacking it. So an easy one to start with, like I already had mentioned, was the painting display. And so that's what we're on here. And now on to the second painting museum, I like to call them, for the underground paintings. Again, themed with the underground feel, I wanted to make a build that represented and felt like it fit in the underground biome, basically, in the environment, the atmosphere, and then the paintings displayed within also then felt more fitting and belonging. There was so I'm trying to think about the timing of updates now, because it was right after I finished the painting displays, I believe, initially, that there was an update that I forget which one it was actually. It must have been it might have been 1.4.1 or 2. I can't remember for sure now. But it was a pretty substantial update, the one that increased stack size for items by 10 times. So now currently you can get up to just shy of 10,000 items per stack instead of 1, which, as you can see here, is still a limiting factor. But in addition to stack size changing, the Relogic added a couple of paintings, actually quite a few paintings, there was like a whole nother suite of underground paintings that you could now find, which are really cool. They added a bunch of unique to Sky Island paintings that you find in the Skyware chests. They added, I believe, one dungeon painting that is that found in chests in the dungeon. Was that right? Yeah, I want to say it's found in chests in the dungeon. For some reason now I'm starting to second guess myself if it's fished up in the dungeon, but no, I think it's looted from chests. Perhaps more specifically the biome chests. Anyway, due to all of those paintings that they introduced, I actually ended up revamping this entire build right here, the underground section for paintings. I basically had to tear this whole build down and expand it to fit all of the new underground paintings, which was okay. I just kept the same theme and just bolstered it out, made it bigger, and it turned out pretty good both times, I think. And then the second time I was actually able to, fit all of the paintings. I honestly, though, because of the size that I made it in, as you can see here, there's a lot more baseline furniture design in the form of windows and beams and little staircase ladders going to the second floor, more than in the dungeon museum to the right. So that allowed me to kind of have a little extra breathing room for each of the paintings. And so when more were added, I think partially I redesigned the building, but partially I also just minimized the dead space between the paintings, and that allowed me to squeeze a lot more in. I do use quite a lot of paint throughout the whole build in general, but I do really still enjoy trying to find blocks with original colors and textures that work together. The main place where I almost always go with paint would be like custom stone masses, where I take a bunch of different stone or stone-like blocks and then paint them gray just to bring an extra level of texture. Or like foundations at the bottoms of buildings, like you see down at the bottom of this one, where I use a variety of bricks, basically painted black, just to keep a little bit higher level of texture. This museum, though, as you may already guess, is for the underworld themed paintings, which there are quite a few of, actually. So I was building it. I allotted not very much space to allow for the inclusion of all of the underworld paintings, but I did want to make a museum design that fit the theme. So I was messing around with this bright red, steeply inclined roof, with sort of those little interior. Excuse me, had to sneeze. Interior, like gable windows, I guess, in the peaks of the roofs. Mostly just theme and shape allowed me to fit the underworld feel, biome vibe pretty closely, though, so that worked out nicely. And overall, I mean, I want to say that this was one of my favorite painting displays in how it turned out, as far as the build itself and theming it to the biome. But honestly, I like quite a lot, if not all, of the displays, like quite a bit. So overall, I'm very happy with all of these little buildings, and it's important to keep in mind that they're like 90% functionality in terms of their purpose being to display the paintings. Like, the buildings themselves are not what I wanted to display. I just wanted to augment the paintings themselves, which are the display items, if that makes sense. So in order to highlight the paintings, I tried to do these themed museum builds, where the build itself is not really, the display per se, but I wanted it to amplify and provide context for the item that actually is displayed, I guess. So there's how the underworld painting display came out. Just again, I try to add a little bit of flavor and color in terms of small furniture items and details at the very end. So I often include books and pots and stuff. And then got ready to move on to another one. And I think at this point I may have realized like my space allotment was a little bit shy. So I didn't want the desert to be quite so crowded as the underworld paintings. So I went and expanded the island a little bit, made some more room so that I would have a little bit more space. As you can see, though, there's there are only 5 main platforms, and I want to say it'll be a couple episodes more in. I don't think it's in this episode that I actually have to go back and not only expand the underground paintings, but build a few new painting display buildings as well. Because of the added paintings that they had in that one update. Because I had to build a new island for the sky paintings. I had to build... no, I'm not going to remember off the top of my head now. But they added a few like blood moon paintings. A bunch of paintings from the Traveling Merchant, such as like all of the Don't Starve crossover paintings. Those were all added. So actually it's the top right hand island in this arrangement that I had reserved for the purchased painting section, which includes mostly Traveling Merchant, I believe, but maybe trying to think what else are there. Does Santa sell paintings? No. It's the Traveling Merchant that sells the Christmas paintings, but only during Christmas, is that right? Oh man, I'm not even remembering now. There's Halloween paintings from Goodie Bags. And those, I think I end up building a unique Halloween themed museum for those. And maybe a few... Oh, that's right. That's another big one. They added solar eclipse enemy dropped paintings, which those ones are pretty cool. There's a bunch from there. So, like, Mothron painting, the Reapers dropped this cool painting. There's an Iser painting. Anyway, all of those plus the Halloween paintings then I grouped together into their own spooky themed museum. So that turned out really cool. But that was another like full-size painting museum that I had to add in. So in the end, I did end up expanding this display by quite a bit. But it actually worked out pretty well in terms of space allotment and the availability within the world here. So in the end, it was fine. But here on the desert display or painting museum, I put a lot of time into trying to figure out the roof design. I wanted to add a little bit of depth and inspiration from, like, I don't know would classify certain Indian temples, perhaps, such as like the Taj Mahal. So like the Taj Mahal is the one that comes to mind, mainly because I have the Lego set from it that I gained a lot of inspiration from to try to include into this specific museum. And by the end of it, with the, I can't even remember now if they were slime blocks or some type of slime block. I think they might have been the pink slime blocks that I ended up doing the roof domes out of, painted white. I was able to get kind of a smooth-ish dome-looking thing, and then ornament it with wrought iron fence. No, just a iron fence, actually. Painted deep yellow to kind of give it a gold color. And it did work out kind of alright in the end. I was able to get that kind of that look that I was going for in desert temple feel. And then, as usual, try to start figuring out if I had enough space to arrange the paintings in a cool way. Spend a bunch of time trying to do that. Look at all those zombies that are trapped in a little cage. They're gone now. Nice. Kind of got it roughly figured out, so then I had the rest of the in-between space to figure out how to do maybe a window or two. I ended up, I guess actually this, as well as, or the painting display in general, but specifically the desert museum as well as the dungeon museum, I really started getting more into stained glass for windows. And man, stained glass windows actually look really cool in a lot of scenarios in Terraria. They're definitely one of the cooler and more fun window design materials, I guess. So anyway, big fan of stained glass, and up until now, and even now, I probably don't use it nearly enough. Another thing, I did try my best to make a part of the painting museums is each one had like a sign as the plaque like display for each of the actual paintings, so that I could write the name of the painting and the author and stuff, just basically the tooltip of the painting itself on the sign right below it. So that was something I wanted to include, and if I remember right, I ended up only having like maybe two paintings in the whole the whole painting display, and I think they both may have been in like the underground paintings that I ended up just not having quite enough room for one or two of the sign labels. But anyway, most of them have their signs that label them. Then, okay, so now I'm finally working on I called it the Modern Art Museum or Gallery, where this was going to be my display, my museum for all of the NPC purchased, and maybe, I'm trying to think of what other paintings, older paintings, would have fit into the category. Basically all the ones that are left at this point, most of which were purchased from the traveling merchant, I believe. No, that's not necessarily true. There are a lot from the painter, and a handful from the golfer as well. So basically my idea was to build some sort of modern art, a modern architectural design building to showcase the NPC purchased art pieces, because there wasn't like a themed biome that I could do that symbolized their origin. So this was my best idea as far as fitting museum type or theme. So I start trying to come up with some sort of design for like a modern building, modern architecture. And man, I spent a lot of time on this trying to figure something out, and it was tough. It was pretty tough for sure. I kind of like I wanted to do angled, just large angled asymmetrical roofs, sloped. So I kind of came up with this general shape to start with, and then I think I realized that it's not going to be big enough, so I end up having to kind of expand it here and there or something. I don't remember. Tried to add a second floor as well, at one point, and I think in the end of it, um, the final product, it does have two floors, and um, generally a similar idea as far as sort of modern angled windows and roof design. But I think I changed the shape up quite a bit from here. And then my idea for the floor was to use like a marble half slabs, just hammer marble flooring, marble blocks down on the floor, and have that be kind of a cool, smooth, modern look for the floor, which has the major disadvantage of not being able to place any furniture on it. But since it's supposed to be a modern museum, I figured maybe not having any furniture would be fitting as well, because when I think of just like an abstract modern art museum, I think of a massive empty room with a weird shape to it and absolutely no furniture. So that's kind of the what was driving my construction of this. So I wasn't too worried about not being able to place furniture on the wall or on the floor. I was just trying to make a modern look, like I've said. So it was interesting, and as you can tell, I spend a lot of time screwing around with a design. My next major dilemma on it was figuring out how to add some sort of staircase, and fix this weird, like, transition dead space between the bottom and upper floors. Um, so that was kind of a weird one to get worked through as well. But like I said, this building ended up undergoing heavy redesigns. I guess that's kind of cool, idea there, to have the first story roof actuated, in front of the staircase, so you can still jump up and down via the spiral staircase, but visually you kind of see that roof contour continue through. It's still weird though, because the background of the staircase is there, taking priority over the shadowed roof section between the bottom and upper floors. So it still didn't really work out very well, but I can kind of see what I was going for, at least. Tried switching out the walls with a more neutral gray, with, I think that's gray painted crystal wall. And then for the main wall choice was just smooth marble for a not perfectly textureless, but still um, blank slate available for paintings. And then I grabbed all the paintings, and even at this time, there are quite a few paintings to display. Of course, more now than there were then. And so I kind of it just got really awkward when I was trying to figure this part out. I spent a bunch of time. Actually, you know what? Hold on. We do still have the Don't Starve paintings in here. No, I must be misremembering. For whatever reason, I had thought that the Don't Starve paintings were added after this, but that's not right. Which means the update that increased stack limits was also after the Don't Starve crossover. So I don't remember well enough in my memory timeline. That's what I'm learning. Still trying to figure out how best to arrange all these. So we have basically all these are from the Traveling Merchant, and they're all 4x6 paintings. So they take up just an absurd amount of space. And I just could not figure out an arrangement within the space that I had created that they would fit into. Then I start throwing in the other NPC purchased / Halloween goodie bag dropped paintings. Speaking of the goodie bag paintings, there's also paintings as rewards from the angler quests. I forgot about that, like pillaging me pixels there. Oh, that's another one. So did they add more? They may have added more fishing quest reward paintings after this point, because that's another entire museum that I added later was for the fishing and ocean themed paintings. As you can see, I scrapped that entire structural design and started over again because it was just not working for me. So same idea. Well, I wanted the modern look, but I completely grabbed a different block palette and tried some new wall designs or shapes, building shapes. That's what I tried. Still kind of got the similar idea to make some abstract angular geometry, and then just kind of expanded in general the amount of space that I had, and just heavy tweaking, to say the least. I think I probably spent more time on this one than any one single or any two individual of the other displays. Maybe even 3, to be honest. It's just for whatever reason. I mean, the contrast is, in this case, I'm trying to design from scratch something to neutrally fit a bunch of different things that aren't all, they don't all share one cohesive theme. So, in contrast, the other painting museums, they all had biome themes, or that they originated within. So I was easily able to, I already I didn't have to figure out anything. I already knew the theme, and I just had to build it. And that is so much easier in so many ways than trying to build something neutral that still doesn't feel weird to encompass, a bunch of different themes. So I had a really tough time with the modern art gallery, as it's mainly it'll be referred to as, I think. Basically, attempt 2 at trying to lay out the paintings. Still just not having a great time. It's just not really fitting. Maybe I found an arrangement that'll pass as far as this upper floor goes. Then start figuring out the transition, the gap between floors, get out all the rest of the paintings. Another thing I'm trying to keep in mind is like the labels, of course, the signs as painting labels to display title and author and stuff. Not author, artist, I guess, I think. So I finally do come up with a layout that technically fits all the paintings that I want. So then I could finally move on to lighting and furnishing, which is pretty minimal, as I was talking about, for this museum. So at least that started going much quicker. Definitely super nice having my storage room and, crafting station and all that available at this point. So that helps out a ton. I finally reached somewhat of a complete-ish stage for the build. I realized that the roof was just kind of off. It was very thin and felt like it was missing thickness or structure or support kind of strength. And so I kind of tried to come up with a way to bolster that up, and it ended up just very simply being white painted balloon wall or whatever that was. I think balloon, which kind of rounded the corners in a cool way, and then just added a little more depth to the roof itself. So then it was time to go back through the rest of the displays or museums and do the final touch-ups. So added little bits and pieces of furniture wherever I could. Finished up the sign labels as well as I could. Added the standard pots and books and plants and whatever. And then at some point in here, I realized that another part of my long-term vision for the base was to have teleporter access to different sections quickly and easily. And so I forgot already, and I actually did, in almost every section that I build, I kind of forgot to plan for a teleporter location and ended up having to squeeze it in somewhere. But in this case, I ended up using one of those small islands on the left there, which actually worked out pretty decent for a little central teleporter location. Oh, there it is right there now. Came up with a little outdoor pad design. And also got finished up with all the wiring for the lights, which is always important there. A staple part of any truly complete build is whether or not you have lights on the switches or not. Got to get some outdoor lighting up as well, so everything was well enough lit. And you may start to notice the main difference environmentally between Tigaria and Terra, being that Terra was a completely included, all-inclusive structure and build. So everything within Terra has placed walls and background walls in everywhere inside of the whole 2 semispheres. So basically no monsters or mobs spawn inside. There are still pockets that they spawn in, and I don't know completely why, but in contrast, Tigaria is built outdoors, where with standalone sections and structures, which doesn't prevent mob spawning, which is kind of a downside in a lot of ways, but it does allow for more creative use of dead space in terms of builds in many ways. So the main example that I have for that would be fences. Almost all the fences in the game have pretty cool textures and unique sprites based on whether they're stacked on top of each other 2 or 3 tall, and whether or not there are fences adjacently to the left or right, or technically just any type of wall tile to the left or right. So, and above, I guess. So in the open space without wall tiles above the fence, you get the cool fence shape and texture. Whereas if in Terra I tried to add fences as railings and stuff on walkways, it would not work because there's glass everywhere in the background. So it'd be tricky. So that's the major difference, build-wise and mechanic-wise of the two bases, I guess. Anyway, as you probably noticed, we have moved on from the painting displays, and this is the layout for the for the mount and pet section. So my first idea here was that I wanted functionality as part of the mount display. So as you know, mounts, they are completely functional items in terms of you put them on, you equip them, their equipment, and then you can ride around and improve and modify your character's mobility. And so in order to demonstrate and test and play with those movement modifications, I wanted to include basically a test area, a little environment that I crafted that provides a space to try out and test the different mounts and their functionalities, in addition to simply having them on display. So that was my idea here. I sketched out the broad structural design for basically a big testing environment for all the different mounts. Then adjacently or attached, kind of, the section that I'm building here is for the pet display. And the pets they don't share the same type of functionality, so all I needed was basically a straight up display building for them instead of including like an arena for testing. You can test out all the mounts, or not mounts, the pets, by simply equipping them and summoning them, but that's about all there is to it. So as far as display and functionality for the pets, all you really need is display. So that was my goal here, was just some sort of shrine or building or structure to house and display all of the pets. I was trying to come up with some temple-esque looking like structure design to fit with the theme and the dome theme from the central structures, or mainly, I guess, the little welcome building for Tigaria there, just to the left of where I'm building here, in this central core frame. So I was messing around with a big arched or domed roof, and built out of gold and platinum bricks painted white for the contrast. As far as the main structure brick, I was just planning on doing the standard white painted pearlstone, ebonstone, and crimstone bricks, which I now get to swapping out. Get that nice texture down, which I use throughout the whole base pretty much, and just kind of pioneering a unique temple design. I do end up adjusting this structurally quite a bit as time goes as well. Instead of being just a weird mushroom, like squatty mushroom type looking thing, I changed it up a little bit from there, but the general idea was, and shape was kind of formed. Go with another spiral staircase, and then a large window in the top to let some light in. Now, I also had an idea where I wanted to sort of build I wanted to build carved stone or brick like statue. I guess, yeah, just statues. So after the actual unicorn statue, I tried to design a larger scale brick constructed statue of a unicorn to attach that on to represent the mount part of the display. And then on the other side, my idea was for a bunny to represent the pet part of the display. Both of which handily have actual in-game statues that represent them, so I can include those to even more fully add to the symbology. One of my favorite things, as you see right there, is using the teleporter trick to float paintings, or not paintings, statues, and then placing the statue on top of the pillar statue. That creates a really cool little stacked statue design, and I think it really adds to statues that you want to display in various niche circumstances where you really want to make statues stand out a little bit more, or highlight them in a special way. I guess you could do that with a lot of different items, using the statue, the pillar statue, which is why I think the pillar statue is the most valuable and sought after, for me at least. So whenever I'm exploring various worlds for resources, if I see a pillar statue, I try to snatch it up as quick as I can, because they are completely non-renewable, as all statues, well, no, not all statues, the large section of naturally generated statues, because there are all of the crafted statues, like the letters and numbers from the heavy workbench, that are obviously not hard to get. So we actually do now take a little break from the mount and pet display. And it's at this point where I finally see I have over 1,000 dirt stacked in my inventory. So this is right when the update came through that increased stack limits and also added a bunch of paintings. So I decided to go back over to the painting section and work on modifying it to include the new paintings. Had a lot of fun exploring and collecting the new ones at this point as well. But as I mentioned, one of the main things added was a whole nother basically expanse of underground paintings. And so what I did is I built a whole new island, and I don't when I was thinking about it before, I thought that I had maybe modified the first one I did, but no. I built a whole new island that was larger and then copied the theme in a new build of similar design, but just larger size here, that would actually be able to fit all of the underground paintings. And then what I did is I actually went and I replaced the original underground painting museum with the spooky themed to include Halloween as well as solar eclipse paintings. End up trying to build in a sandstorm, which at some point later on in the series, I think we'll get to it, but I do modify. I replaced a bunch of the sand beneath the surface so that this where I'm standing right now is not actually a desert biome, it's just regular forest. Visually, I kept it the same, and I did that by just removing and or replacing most of the underground sand blocks down beneath the surface. So that way there wasn't enough sand in the range to create the desert biome. But yeah, like I said, reconstructing the underground painting cabin for the underground painting museum. Just an expanded and stretched out building of same theme, and it turned out pretty well. As you can see, there's a big difference between already having the theme decided and laid out an example for me to go off of, and trying to wing something brand new and come up with something on the fly. All I basically had to do was figure out an adequate shape that would be enough for including all the paintings. Then I get to the wall and interior fleshing out. Well, not necessarily like the first level, first layer of interior. Get all the walls in, a few of the major windows and staircases and beams, and that's about it for the first thing. And then after that, usually I start refining how much and how and where I can lay out furniture. One thing that I've for a long time kind of struggled with but tried is building windows into the exterior walls of the structure. Like you see here on this second floor, there's two windows on the left and right edges on the supporting walls, within the blocks themselves. And so in this case, all I did is I made a little diamond of hammered glass and then actuated it to provide a little like overlay hint of the glass texture. And then behind it I used the regular, I used stone walls, I think, in this case, or stone brick or some mixture. And that kind of is supposed to make it look like an inset window in the wall, but just from, you know, the 2D side view. And overall it works okay, but definitely tricky, a tricky thing to depict in Terraria, where you just have 2 dimensions. Finally, I was able to gather up all the paintings now and start getting them displayed. So I think I did want to roughly organize them between old and new. It looks like all of the old paintings here that I have, I wanted to do together on the bottom. Although I don't think I don't have space to do on the bottom. I realized that I needed more space in general, so I had to take out 2 of the windows from the upstairs, which is unfortunate, but only just leaving 2 there still works okay, and they fail to provide enough color and detail just between the 2 of them, I think. And then I kind of just ended up having to fit the paintings in more efficiently. You'll notice I have 4 of the strange growth paintings. That's because there are 4 variations of that painting. Uniquely, whenever you place that painting, I think that's how it works, is there's a random chance of 1 through 4 that it is any of the given strange plant textures or paintings themselves. And so that's really cool. It's basically like the paintings in Minecraft. You have various paintings that are actually displayed whenever you break and replace the painting itself. And there they all go. They're on middle right hand side. Now, hilariously, I think there's a painting called like Fairy Guides. Is that right? That I realized I had somehow forgotten, and I missed including it here. It's the painting of like 3 different little fairies. And I go like a long time. Somehow I end up spotting it like, I think earlier this year, in 2025, I was just happened to notice that I didn't have it in there. And I was like, what the heck? It was crazy. And because of that, I already didn't have a lot of extra room, and I think 1 or 2 of the paintings now are unlabeled without their little placard. Maybe there's one in the... Is there one there? I feel like there might be one in the underworld section too. I don't know. Anyway, a whole new island. Once again, I had to include. And I'm thinking this is probably the fishing, like, nope, it's not the ocean display. Which one is this gonna be? Maybe this island here is the ocean display. I'm trying to remember. I can't remember now which order what this new grass island is. What is that? Yeah, here's the sand. So this must be the fishing and the ocean theme there. Add a little bit of detail here and there. They also added 1 jungle painting from the Lizard Temple. The oh, what's it called actually? The wolf. I want to say it's Watcher, but Oh, I think it might be called Lizard King. Maybe that's it. Man, making these commentary sections is definitely a lot of like trivia review for me. I'm struggling a lot when it comes to remembering a lot of details. This little island that we just built is the sky theme, so that's for the newly added sky paintings you get from the sky islands. And now this one, I think this is just a little one for a single small jungle shrine building with where I put the one jungle painting. Grow a couple of trees here, and it's at this point where we now have fertilizer, which is super handy. So I end up, obviously I use that quite a bit now. I don't have to just plan my initial structural building around letting trees grow preliminarily and then working around them. I can actually grow them on command, basically. Yeah, there's the jungle painting, and then there's also the new desert, or not desert, dungeon painting. What's it called? With the cultist. It's probably there in the video if you pause at the right frame. I can't remember what the name of that one though. Anyway, in order to include it, I just made like a secretive little like passage in the bottom of the what's it called, the dungeon, and included it there, which worked out just fine. I switch out the little jungle island for mud instead of grass here. And then, what is this? Okay, I remember now. This one, kind of also a modern themed architecture, was specifically just for the purchased paintings from the traveling merchant. So at this point there were enough like miscellaneous paintings and purchased paintings that I couldn't just include all of them in the same thing, or didn't want to. It wouldn't work very well. So I decided to build the traveling merchant his own personal museum, basically. So this would actually fit much better all of the traveling merchant specific paintings. And so I end up designing it with with dynasty wood and shingles. Being as it's from the traveling merchant, it was an easy building palette to come up with. And then that allowed me to theme it. And I mean, honestly, the theme of the environment and block palette for the biome found paintings, but also even the traveling merchant paintings, just seemed to fit the paintings themselves so well, which is something I find so cool about the paintings and Terraria as a whole, is how well everything kind of fits. Like there's not like each biome and all the parts of each biome just go together so nicely. And then the items and special things found within and from the biomes all add to the feel and the uniqueness of the biome, and none of it really, except maybe in very rare situations, you might be able to come up with some examples, but nothing within a biome kind of takes you out of the feel of the biome that you're in, or the section of the game that you're in. So I find that just the cohesive design bit within Terraria and the themes of everything as a connected unit just work really well. It's something that definitely one of the things that adds to the magic that so many of us find in Terraria, I guess. But yep, finally now have, and even with only the traveling merchants paintings displayed, they still barely fit in one building. And it's not like a super small building here, but the theme kind of fits there. I guess the weird thing about the theme continuity that I'm now on about is the fact that there's like Christmas paintings and Don't Starve paintings, and then like the Martian paintings, and then the miscellaneous stuff like the pizza, and then the what is that one? The like the princess one with the ponies or something. The second one in from the top left. Oh, and then there's like Yummy the Blue Tiger. A lot of the traveling merchant ones, I mean, there's not a cohesive theme behind all of these. There's a few different very, very out there sections. But when it comes to displaying them all together, I do still feel that it's the Dynasty Wood block palette and Dynasty shingles that kind of just allow for them to still be in the same building together. But anyway, I mess around a little bit with the different signs and colors for the labels, and then go on to the next museum design, which next door is going to be for the ocean paintings, basically. So these would be acquired by fishing or from completing fishing quests. I think that is all. I don't think. I'm trying to think if you can get any paintings or not from like crates. I can't remember. For some reason, I'm starting to question it, but my instinct is that no, you can't. All the paintings are acquired as quest rewards or from fishing itself, like fishing up the Lady in the Lake from the Hallowed biome. You can fish up, what is it? Is it just called a Dread Nautilus? The painting that you fish up during blood moons. And I'm trying to think if there are any other fished up paintings. Maybe just those two, and then the rest are angler quest rewards. So the theme, ocean themed basically. Roof palette, I wanted to include hay blocks, which kind of, I've always liked going with using those in along with the palm wood, and I find that they work pretty good together. In addition to those, there's sandstone, which is kind of an interesting tangential relation. So for like the floor, I went with sandstone, and then supporting underneath the build, a bunch of sandstone columns, and then mess around with how much of the little accent sections I wanted. And then of course bamboo. The bamboo and large bamboo more often than regular bamboo is really nice to include with beach theme, the palm wood theme, and that in general. Overall though, I guess I would put the category of this painting museum very close to my fishing display section in Tigaria in terms of feel, which I guess I also eventually do get to the fishing section in Tigaria here, and it's also a somewhat similar-ish theme, but I do, in that example, as we'll get to later down the road, focus more towards the Dynasty theme instead of palm wood. And then we get to actually putting the paintings in. Wait, so there's... Yeah. Yeah, I think all those... There are only 2 that are fished up and the rest are quest rewards. One of the nice things about any ocean-themed builds I find is the final detailed furnishing is very plentiful. Between like shells and starfish and coral, just right there you have so many colors and textures to and small furniture items to play with. You can easily fill in as much and often a lot more detail than you could ever want. Whoops, creaky floor alert. I'm checking over my note document once again here, as here I'm going for the build for the sky painting display, which there aren't a ton of, so I was able to do fairly a fairly modest sized structure, and then just kind of a unique design themed around an observatory was the idea there. So an asymmetrical partial glass dome, and then the what is it? This the eye of the sun or something eye? No, maybe that's not right at all. I can't remember the name of that painting that looks like a big celestial shield, kind of. Placed that up in the center of it to represent kind of like an observing eye, or maybe a usable artifact or contraption like a telescope that you could look through to observe the stars. Just kind of a fun idea to design the shape around. And then got the rest of the handful of paintings added in there, no problem. So it was a pretty quick and simple little build. But as far as my notes go, this I had taken kind of a large break here, which is probably why I came back after the block size, or not block, the stack size limit increased. I had been playing a lot of Minecraft and building Castle Frostfane leading up to this. So then I got back into Tigaria to update the painting display. And here's the addition of the little shrine for the lizard painting. That was nice. I had to make sure not to use too many jungle blocks because I didn't want the jungle biome appearing and increasing spawns and changing the background and all that. But it turned out pretty cool, just a little simple shrine. So I do like it in the end. And here's the wipe of the original underground painting display. So got that completely removed, and then I went to go ahead and replace it with the spooky theme. So what was that actually? I was trying to think why I placed all those tombstones initially. I guess maybe partially my idea was just to have a few tombstones on display as a miniature graveyard leading up to the building, kind of like an old haunted mansion, basically, was the idea. Once again, back into the modern art museum, where I am redesigning the whole layout now that I have a bunch of the paintings displayed in other sections. And some of the paintings, I think some of them I may have moved to the Spooky Build museum, or otherwise it was mainly just the traveling merchant ones that I was removing and rearranging without. Still have the general structure for the modern museum is kind of here, and now that I have a lot more space to work with, I was able to play around with adding in windows and a few other very bland furniture things, and then I much more spaciously organized to the paintings themselves, which works out a lot better than the previous cramming. See, these ones, there are a handful of paintings that are kind of spooky themed from the painter, so I had them in their own section. Thematically, they would have fit pretty good in the haunted mansion, but I wanted to keep them here just to keep the technical categories restricted. As far as a timeline for a base creation goes, let me look. So when I started creation, there was 342 hours on my main character. And when I get to around this point, as I finish up remodifying the painting display, I'm sitting at 911 hours. So basically we're coming up on the first 600 hours of time into Tigaria at this point. Oh, this section as well, the painting itself, is one that I have outlined on paper, actually, just basically sketching out the location and layout of the islands themselves for each of the little museum designs. So I do have this shown on paper, which helped me kind of figure out how to roughly lay out the large scale organization. But as I have mentioned, we are on to the spooky haunted house theme, where I get the block palette pretty well figured out. This was also right after they added ash wood, which I use in this for this section, and it fits really nicely as far as the spooky theme. So I'm super excited to be working with that a little bit on top of the spooky wood, which we already had. But as you can see right outside the windows, I already have some ash wood fences, which work really cool. And then I go for a actuated 3D side view roof design, and it actually works out pretty good overall by the time I'm done with it. I've rarely, if ever, actually executed a good type of this type of roof design, But in this case, it fits pretty well with the Haunted Mansion theme, I think. And I was able to kind of portray the shape and the theme that I was going for. Add some support, foundation underneath, just some stony, dirty textures and stuff to add a lot of chunky texture down under there. As far as foundation goes, I find that usually looks pretty good. Figure out the palette for the interior walls, and I did have a lot of different things to play with. I'm trying to think. I think Pearlwood ended up being really good, as well as down in the lower floor here, this little combination of fancy gray and actually, is that pumpkin wall or what even is that? I can't remember now. But then I got the paintings gathered up. So in here we've got, like I said, all the new solar eclipse paintings on top of the goodie bag paintings. So all the goodie bag ones are in the center upstairs, and then that leaves us just enough room downstairs and on the sides of the upstairs to fit the other new solar eclipse paintings. So as far as size and stuff, it worked out just about right. Overall building size. Do a little bit more detail up on the roof, and then the railings out on the steps going up and down. And then had some fun making like an old dead tree kind of looking thing. Having a lot of fun with the new fertilizer, of course. It took me forever to grow a tree that didn't have a top on it, or didn't take forever, but it took a lot of attempts. Very luckily, I had fertilizer at this point, because if not, that would have been a super painful process to grow a topless tree like that naturally. This is one of the rare cases with the oh man, what is it? They're the lanterns from the dungeon. There's carriage lanterns, and there's also, what's the other one that's really similar? They're both right there on the screen. Oh my gosh, I can't remember. They're brass lanterns, oil rag sconces, carriage lanterns, and oh man, and I want to say carriage lanterns are the dimmer, darker black ones. Oh man, why can I not remember? But anyway, they're both really fitting for the spooky Haunted Mansion theme, so they work out really nice. It's probably going to pop into my head at some random point here coming up. Anyway, I do go back and sort of re-actuate the perimeter of the roof, which actually works pretty good. It brings that detail just a little bit more out to the surface, so it looks a little bit more relevant. And then also allows you to, I mean, you can still walk across it and not hit your head on the upper island, which works out good for allowing exploration. But that pretty much finally now wraps up the painting display as far as where its current state is. And then I, after a long delay, get back over to the pet display building, where I start redesigning and remodeling the structure. Generally, I keep the shape about the same, but just make some small tweaks here and there. figure out kind of how to make the... Basically, I needed to figure out how to have some sort of roof on the left and right arm things, because it was looking weird with just those knobular attachments. But kind of was able to save it with the mini dome roof design, and then get progressively onto the furnishing. I do still like how the large statues came out on the sides down below with the unicorn and the bunny. They really help to symbolize the section itself and what I'm going for. Of course, every section also is labeled with a little sign leading up to it, so it should be pretty obvious to anyone who's exploring and viewing the sections what's what and where it is and all this. And of course now the teleporter section or hub in the very center is up and functional too, so that helps quite a bit as far as getting around. Took me a while to decide on what platforms to use for the window sills and trim, get some banners out, figure out where to lay the windows out, and I'm pretty sure I wasn't concerned about my space allotment. There aren't really a ton of pets to display, and really the only way to display them is within item frames, so they're pretty compact as far as the actual displaying and arranging them. So I did most of the a lot of the furnishing preliminarily. Got the lights figured out, doors, windows, and some banners, yada yada. You get the idea. At this point as well, I still had basically the entire interior just backed with pearlstone walls, so I was trying to get that broken up a little bit here and there. I did some platinum brick walls to break it up, and then also finally got the item frames out and I had my total count of pet items already arranged, so I just had to take a little bit of time to figure out the best way to arrange those in terms of progression and everything. And then I did go ahead and actually get them installed pretty early on. A lot of times in these display builds, I will do the whole build, and then at the end, the last thing I'll do is add the display items themselves. But in this case, same with the paintings, I guess. I kind of do them in the middle so that I have the flexibility to organize and the confirmation that the arrangement's going to look good, and then do the final furnishing on top of that. I did end up switching which side I had the bunny and the unicorn on as far as my little statues went. I felt like there was just a little bit more room on the right hand side, but also physically the pet display, which we're looking at here, does sit on the left of the mount display, so it made more sense to swap them, go the other direction. And then there's kind of a lot of messing around with this section right here, getting the my platform from the little mount testing playground to connect back up with the main level without looking too weird. And then I also had to include, you'll notice those, it's roughly laid out right now, but there are two little pocket tunnels that go down underground there. One is for a water tunnel to test out the water mounts, and then the lower little section down in there is for the lava, because specifically the superheated blood, which summons the lava shark mount, in this section right here that I'm flying into and lining with stone, I was going to fill that with lava in order to test out the lava shark. Because I really, like I mentioned, I really wanted to include functionality as much as I could in any of the sections where that would be relevant. So that was my idea there. And then I would go, and similarly to how I did the painting support, like islands, I ended up with my same dark, I'm gonna call it my dark basalt mix. Get that lining the whole bottom of this large mass, and then I end up adding in a few locations little green crystals as the supportive energies, making sure that everything is held up at least partially, still mainly by imagination, but partially by something represented as well. And then I just have a bunch of little miniature forest and grass terrain to build up and play with. So just a lot of customization, terraforming, basically making a little environment, not necessarily with obstacles, but with interest to run through and be able to test the various mounts within. Had to make that little line barrier with obsidian because it would be separating the lava from the water channels. And then I wanted to do like a little underwater bubble and island kind of right underneath this section. Some sand under there, and then just kind of had some fun making up miniature environmental pockets and cubbies, whatever you want to call them. Added the grass, and then continued on with texturing and eventually building little structures and stuff. Added my custom stone texture in, not super thoroughly, but here and there, just a little bit of gray painted rich mahogany, living mahogany, and that added just changed up the stone texture here and there. And then as far as background goes, a lot of flower wall mixed with some jungle and grass wall. Or actually, no, maybe it is just flower and jungle mixed together for a little bit of color variation. And then this is what kind of binds all of the discombobulated platform sections together in the end. Sort of provides that background structure to where it looks like it's actually held in place and together by a cohesive plant mass, maybe. got the basic grass and flower walls, and then moved on to the stone and underworld stone themes for here and there. Need to fill in for the lava, and then eventually, yeah, get onto the actual structure designing. So I wanted this little pond or a small lake in the bottom center there, or well, it's definitely not center, very bottom of the structure though. And so I wanted to build a cool little bridge going over it with some furniture. And then I eventually had to start figuring out what I would actually hold the mounts items in. So I needed some sort of structure to actually have the mounts displayed. And what I ended up coming up with to fit with the open outdoor environmental testing theme was sort of an open gazebo, or I want to call it a gazebo, but that's not quite right. Man, I really don't know the word I'm looking for here. Just an open structure with pillars supporting a couple of different floor levels. And then vines and grass sort of growing or in and around it. And then the items able to be displayed in part of it, I guess, is all there really is to it. My main hope was to give it an overgrown feel, and so initially what I started doing was trying to lay out vines that twist around and wrap up and down the columns and in and out of the space. And so that's what I first initially got started on. And of course, with actuation, I would be able to sync them out of collision plane, so you would be able to walk past and everything. And then using that with the leaf walls and flower walls and stuff, I was hoping to be able to kind of flesh it out and provide a feel of overgrownness. And this is something that I continued throughout the rest of the testing space below, and included with various pillar designs, as you'll see coming up here as well. But I did have to figure out how to actually display the items. So there aren't that many different mounts in the game, actually. I mean, there are a handful, but far less than the number of pets, for example. And the other section included within the mounts, I guess, would be minecarts. I wanted to also have. But even between between mounts and minecarts both, there really aren't a whole ton. There's like, I want to say in the 20s maybe. It's hard to say. I don't remember for sure. I'm trying to look at my notes. I don't have the numbers listed here. Actually, I probably would in the bottom. They're listed in the world too, in the little section label. I do have noted though that I was missing 6 of the pets, not including the new ones from 1.4.4. So that must be the update where the stack size limit and a bunch of the paintings were added. 1.4.4. Anyway, I did have to take a little bit of a break and do some pet and mount collecting here, or actually before this point now, but when it came down to it, here was kind of what I came up with for the space allotted for the display of the mounts. So I kind of cut off the vines from the right hand half of the structure and just arranged item frames for the mine carts up above, and then all of the pets, or sorry, I keep calling them pets, all of the mounts down below, so they're easy to view and then grab and test out if you're interested. Then that left the left-hand side of the structure to be furnished thematically, and so I kind of just went along with that, made some sort of outdoor field or feeling dining space, kind of just somewhere to hang out. And then I started going on the pillar structure that I wanted, which would be the main sort of feature that provided more context and character to the rest of the testing grounds. I actually really like this pillar design in general, with a pretty heavy use of palladium columns, and then went along with the actuated living leaves to really overgrow the structure a little bit. Using a combination of actuation and paint and walls and layering, I was able to kind of blend everything together decently, where in these two initial pillars I have the top section in the foreground, and that so you can actually stand up on top of it, but you can also walk through underneath without collision, and that allows me to use them kind of to support my future design of my minecart rail that actually tours the whole build, but that doesn't come till the very end. But I did, either at this point or shortly after, come up with the idea that I wanted to have this be kind of the origin point, which would add another purpose to this build, this section of the base, in that it is the start for the mine track tour. As I said, the main staple for featuring the rest of the testing grounds would be these columns, so I went and added them throughout the level down below here. And of course these ones are entirely actuated and sunk into the background, so there's no collision. Obviously it would be a problem if you're trying to run your horse through and you run into a massive pillar that you can't get through. That would not be a great test. Here's a little overview of the standing currently. You can see roughly the scale of it is, I mean, it's moderately large in overall size, but a lot of it's like environmental structure. So it's a little bit different than building an entirely detailed build of this size. But the overall fit of the space balances out pretty well with the paintings that now stand to oppose it on the left-hand side, on the other side of the core. For a lot of these, well, I guess actually throughout most of my construction of display sections, I used a lot of the teleporter gun from the Moonlord for easy access between my work site and my storage room. So that worked out pretty nice. Started trying to look into what I wanted to do for lighting, because I had so much space that the lighting was going to be kind of tricky. I was able to do just marble lamps down across most of the floor in the grass, which works just fine. They probably my most used light source throughout the whole world so far. And then in the little underwater section, I was able to add some coral lighting in preliminarily, which ended up working just fine. The lava, obviously, I don't need lighting in. And then I was just kind of left with the hanging lights. What did I want to do there? And I ended up just settling on the classic living wood lanterns, I think, and calling that good. Get a few trees going here, which also are a huge of huge importance as far as getting the flesh filled in for the whole environmentally full feel. And basically just it's kind of a transition between structural layout and then furnishing, where I usually do structure, then lights, then, or perhaps structure, then walls, then lights, then furnishing. And there's probably 2 or 3 different standard tiers of furnishing in different levels of detail. But I'm finally into, I'd say, the standard furniture filling in phase, which would include tables and chairs, and then everything else in that category. You have pianos, clocks, sofas, benches, bookcases. Bookcases just look really cool, like so many of the different ones. So basically everything included in the standard furniture sets. And then after that, like I've mentioned a lot, is the more fine details with the little plates on the tables, the pots and the books, and then whatever else unique items kind of fit the environment that you're actually going in. I am a big fan of placing bars on the ground, even though I forget to do it a lot of the time. But they surprisingly work in a lot of scenarios. And it's also interesting how you can hammer them. After that, then comes the plants, so all the flowers and little plant pieces to build in or place in plant. Oh yeah, and now there's even the rubble maker. So I think it wasn't at 1.4.4 that the rubble maker was added too. So that was just a huge toy, basically. One of the coolest things ever added to the game. Definitely my highlight for 1.4.4 was the rubble maker. Narrowly winning out over the new paintings probably, but anyway, since then though, the rubble maker has been a huge tool for all of my projects. Really adds that next level of finish to almost any build. Actually, it's crazy. Here we go with the pots. Probably put like 50 or more pots around. Then the lava and water finally. Here we go. Make sure everything is nice and tipped off where I want it. Looking good so far. So yep, got the little pond filled up and all the water feature, lava feature, and that might come pretty close to wrapping it up here. Just the final furnishing, like setting the tables, filling in the plates and stuff. So basically that here does it for the painting in, and then as well the pet and the mount displays. So the first two major sections of Tigaria finished off, but that's where this section concludes. And next section we pick up with the block and then the tool and weapon displays. So those are big sections too, but they don't take too long though. So that's where we'll leave for now though. I hope you guys enjoyed the viewing. Really appreciate your tuning in, and I hope you have an outstanding rest of your day.